Let's see here. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm John Lee with St. Louis Real Estate Investors Association, and we're here with Davis and Travellini LLC. We're happy to have Kathy Davis and Christine Travellini right now with us. So, what can you tell us today? Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too. I think uh, I think Chris is going to hop on in a minute too. And Anne is asking about sending a donation for the writ.
Yes.
Just send it to us and write, put a sticky on it that says for the writ or something, and we'll figure it out. And we appreciate that. The Supreme Court did not rule on the writ on November 3rd. They did rule on a bunch of other stuff, but they didn't get to us. And their next decision date is not until November 24th. We are taking a hard look at going ahead with federal court. We obviously have a problem right now with the COVID numbers up and new shutdowns being considered and all those things going on. It just might not be an auspicious time to move forward. And we're also following a lot of lawsuits that mostly have to do with the CDC stay in federal courts in other states. And those are not generally doing well. The one in Atlanta that we had hopes for, the judge denied the landlord's request for a preliminary injunction. And the way that they seem to be weaseling out of what I think of the law is, oh, well, you can still collect the money. And so we have thought about, and I think we are working on starting to garnish people if we can't evict them and we know where they work. So if we have files for you and you know where the people work and we haven't been able to get them out, call us and we'll garnish them, because garnishments are still going through. It's really an Alice in Wonderland kind of landscape, because the things that we're allowed to do and the things that we're not allowed to do don't make any sense when looked at as a whole. My big news, other than the writ, is that, and this is not really that big news for landlords, but it's significant to me for other things, is that federal court has announced today that they're staying close to the public for another week. The only things they're going to be handling for the rest of the year in person are going to be criminal trials. All motions and all civil matters will be handled remotely until at least after the first of the year. And there will be no jury trials there until after the first of the year. We're waiting for Judge Burleson in the city to decide if he's going to extend his eviction stay, which, you remember, every month he's kind of been expanding it. And now we can evict in the city everybody except rent people who just don't rent. So I don't know what he's going to do with respect to that. We've been gathering information and giving it to the judges about what we consider to be the lack of any diligence or urgency on the part of the city, the county, and the various agencies involved to get, all this COVID rent relief money out to the landlords. When Chris comes on, I think he's got some movement on that, and got a thing that our landlords are having to sign that it no longer requires us to dismiss the eviction. It just says that we'll stay it, which to me means that we can keep our lawsuits on file and continue them until we get to the point, whatever relief money they've received that we've gotten for them runs out, and then we can still proceed on a balance. We're not having to dismiss and leave balances sitting out there and that kind of thing based on this paperwork. I want to turn it over to Christine, who you haven't seen for a while, because
I have nothing to say. Unfortunately,
she has things to say, but they're not for general audiences.
Well, that's probably true.
She's very frustrated. I'm going to let her talk to you about that, and about how, just as in a typical year, we're getting close to the end of the year and close to the end of court dates for the year, and what that means.
Yeah, I'm not having, or at least my landlords don't seem to be having the kind of luck, if we want to call it luck, that Chris is having in the city with getting funds from these organizations. So that isn't really moving like the tenant advocates like to claim that it is. So that's been a struggle. Nothing's really changed with regard to moving things through in the county. As Kathy said, that stay order is still in place, and that stay order is completely separate from the CDC order. uh, with the way things are going, I'm not positive. I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but I feel like the way things are going and the way that it's gone since March, I'd be surprised if the presiding judge lifted that stay order or moved the courts into phase 2 before the end of the year. Now, of course, anything could happen, but I would anticipate that we're going to have stay orders in place at least through the end of the year. We're still able to file, even with that CDC order. We've gotten clarification from the CDC even that that stay orders for the sheriff. We can still proceed with filing. We can still take judgments if we want to take judgments. Now, right now, we're at that point where anything we're filing, we're going to get court dates, hopefully still in December. And it's all going to kind of come to head at the end of the year anyway. The county is still taking longer to issue court dates. It is anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks from the time that I file before they're assigning me court dates. I have 2 court dates left in St. Louis County. The courts always shut down the last few weeks of December anyway because of the holidays. So not only my division and judge, but the other associate circuit judges as well usually will shut down and stop having dockets the last couple weeks of the year. I have 2 left, and I've got stuff that I even filed about, it'll be going on close to almost 2 weeks ago that I haven't gotten issued a court date yet. I expect to get one of the December dates, which for me is December 10th or December 17th. So we're really looking at within the next probably week or two is kind of the cutoff for my stuff for me to get it filed to even hope to get a initial court date in December. Otherwise, it's going to go into January. We have been, we've challenged a couple of those CDC orders. I think I might have mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, the last time I was on. That is not going well. That bar is so low, and the judges seem to keep that bar low. And if the tenant is coming on and the judge puts them under oath and they seem credible, that is enough for the judge to say, okay, that stay, they're in compliance, or they've I believe that declaration is true, or what have you. So those unless there's really some circumstances where we have this absolute proof that they are really a tenant that would be receiving any kind of Social Security or disability check every month, that hasn't changed, and that amount in income for them hasn't changed since COVID, I don't see anything short of that is going to overturn any declaration that the tenant files. Let me think what else. Did you say I was going to talk about something else? Because now I can't remember. Otherwise, honestly, everything's kind of remained the same in the county. Nothing moves very quickly, even when, so we're still filing, we're still getting consent judgments with pay plans. The tenants are still appearing for the Zoom hearings. We're trying to get them to do agreements. For the most part, I think they're sticking to those pay terms. And I think that just because I'm not getting a lot of my clients coming back to me and saying, okay, file the sheriff execution, get me in line, because they haven't paid. There are a few like that, but not all of them. And then there's also a delay in getting a trial setting. So for now, if anybody shows up on that initial court date, it's typically I'm getting a trial date, sometimes a month out. And then even once I have the trial, what I'm seeing the judge has been doing is sometimes taking a week or two before he will even enter the judgment. And then, of course, they have the standard 10 days to file a de novo if they wanted to file a de novo. But then what I've been seeing him do lately is take a week or two to enter the judgment and then further stay execution for longer than the 10 days. I just had one that I had a trial on October the 22nd. I didn't get the judgment until yesterday. So it was dated November 5th. And he gave, of course, the 10 days they have to file a de novo if the tenant wanted to file de novo, but then put language in the judgment that the execution would be stayed until November 30th. So right now, it's not a huge deal because we can't do sheriff executions anyway. But that's kind of the pattern that I've been seeing lately. I don't know if that will continue. A lot is unknown right now about how things will proceed going forward after, come January, but it's the same slow process.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing that we want to mention, and we mention this every week, is that every Friday, the Judge Burton in St. Louis County makes a new announcement about what phase the county is going to be in. He's been staying in phase 1 for several weeks. I haven't heard anything about new COVID in the jail in the past week. So he could possibly go to phase 2 today, but he also puts a lot of stuff in his orders about community spread and that kind of thing. And obviously we're not in a good place there. So I'm hesitant to give any kind of hope, because I think we've had a little hope, or given a little hope a couple of times before, and those hopes have been dashed.
Right. That's why I said I really don't anticipate he's going to move us into phase 2 before the end of the year, because I believe he does rely heavily on what's going on in the community as well. Yeah. And
so that's where we are, I have another Zoom call meeting with him and some other judges and some other lawyers, including tenant lawyers, on Tuesday. We usually get nowhere on those meetings, but I'm in there pitching, trying to get them to, loosen the restrictions at least a little. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that, this is the end of 2-year rotation assignments in the county. So some of the judges are changing assignments at the end of the year. This is probably presenting an issue already about getting dates and things and everything in January. Hopefully that'll be cleared up within the next couple of weeks. But that's another thing that, goes on even without COVID at the end of the year that can slow things down. So if you want to file and have a court date this week, that probably needs to happen soon, or it's definitely going to be into next year. And we can't even tell you when next year yet, because we don't have those January dates yet until we know what judge we're going to be assigned to. Chris, would you like to pop in on your responsibilities, your counties?
Well, I just got back from St. Charles today. It's still standing. I believe they're in phase 1, which means they allow landlord-tenant cases to go forward, but nothing else. Everything, is pretty much normal there on that front. Of course, it could always shut down again with how many cases they have out there, so we'll see. And Jefferson is back to phase 2, which means they're doing in person. And so they're fairly normal, but I expect, they'll probably shut down again at some point. The city, well, I'm sure, I don't know if Kathy already told you, we'll know more today whether or not how things are going to change, with the sheriff. I'm not optimistic. I know they're probably staying whatever phase they're currently in. I talked to the judges, said they had, I think, a single case last week get reported in one of the city court employees. So that's probably going to be the same. The difficult thing if you're filing in the city, what I found is a lot of pushbacks. They've expanded their ability to use the sheriff, but I've been getting pushback from judges who realize this, and we're filing a lot more cases because of this that would qualify under the exception. But we're getting pushback from some of the judges who feel sorry for the tenants and are looking for ways to keep them in the property. I'm having to challenge it, get a new second trial on one where the judge just made up law to keep a tenant in there. So, I mean, that's something, if you're filing your own cases, you can, watch out for, because the judges, even when you can move forward, at least in the city, they're going to be looking for ways to keep people from being evicted, more so than normally they wouldn't stick us with a bad tenant, or a tenant, where there's not agreements, that's not a fruitful relationship going forward. So just something to watch out for, and all the more reason to make deals where you can.
I was thinking about this just before we got on the call. I was on a previous commission meeting on the Supreme Court commission I'm on, where they're considering new rules. And I got to stay on that, because eventually the COVID's going to be over, and I can't let the tenant attorneys walk away with creating new rules that are going to hamstring us even more. But I do think that there will be somewhat of a backlash in our favor when the COVID numbers start to go down. I think that, I think we'll get some of ours back. This is hard for us right now because we're used to winning, and landlords don't generally sue someone unless they either haven't paid their rent or they've done some crazy bad behavior. Mm-hmm. So we are generally in the right when we file suit. So we're not used to judges saying, I'm going to make something up just so the tenant doesn't have to be evicted. That usually doesn't happen. Even when we get a new judge to the bench who's sympathetic for a little while, they get a few weeks of tenants appearing in front of them with these BS excuses and, that kind of thing. And they come around to our side, usually within a month or two. It doesn't take long for them to see. So this has been a long string of bad outcomes for us, and feelings like, we're not representing our clients the way we'd like to be. We're not finding a way. We're not finding a path to victory, as they keep saying in the election, for a lot of our clients yet. We're relieved that many of you have a lot of tenants who are still paying despite all the pro-tenant stays. We're relieved that people are getting on payment plans and that kind of thing. We really hope that you're all okay out there, because we feel so helpless and limited in what we can do. I mean, we're throwing everything at this, and not so far having the success that we would like and that we're used to having. And I can tell you that Chris and Christine are on the phone and doing mediations and negotiating and doing things all the time. I mean, we are working really hard. We are not generally charging extra to our clients for that. We're including it with our flat fee. And, we're just trying to do everything we can. I don't want to be all gloomy going into the holidays, but, I'm concerned about all of us. And, I also wanted to mention, John, before I forget, looking at the list of upcoming meetings, we are not going to work the day after Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we do work then, but we decided this year that everybody just needed 4 days in a row off. And also the Fridays work out to Christmas and New Year's Day, so we won't work on those days either. So, right. Okay. So if somebody needs something, you can email me. But other than that, we won't be seeing you on those days.
Thank you.
We'll see you a few more times before then. And we hope that everybody is going to have happy and safe holidays. But I just wanted to, say that now.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I just want to say too, we do appreciate you so much. We have so much gratitude for you. Just everything you do. I mean, everything. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate your appreciation. I feel like it might not be earned as much as I'd like right now, because
it is.
We're not getting the results that we'd wish to get. But again, we're here for you guys. If you need anything, we're happy to see you every week. We're happy to share our tales of woe about the courts and what's going on.
Thank you so much.
Does anybody have any questions or anything, or?
Hey, I have one question for you.
Sure, Dwayne.
If we turn like what the same thing John does, if we've turned tenants into buyers of our property and they don't pay us, that's not affected by any of these things we talk about on this. We can go ahead and foreclose on them, correct?
Foreclosures are not stayed.
Okay.
In Missouri that foreclosures are non-judicial, so they don't require a court's approval or anything. We do them at the courthouse. I've made a small change in my foreclosure ads where I describe where the sale is going to take place. I say outside the courthouse because we're doing them outside. We're not generally going in, which is fine until it gets real cold. But yeah, we can go forward with foreclosures. There's no stay on that.
Except if you then have to proceed with an unlawful detainer, because after you foreclose, they're not getting out.
Yeah. I think St. Louis
Hard
County,
to ray
as we've said, is
sunshine.
the only one that has the across the board stay. In the other counties, we could still evict them afterwards at this point. But yeah.
Yeah,
So
St.
make
Louis
the deal
County is
going in.
St. Louis County is given no exceptions at all. So it doesn't matter what kind of case it was. If you're asking for any kind of a sheriff execution, it is not happening in St. Louis County.
It's the city. Could be Chris's.
Okay,
The city is
good.
that we would be allowed to evict that kind of person in the city. The city
Hypothetically.
stay right now is just as to people who have rent and possessions, just not paid rent.
Right. Just wanted to make sure of that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey Kathy, this is Dan Bryan. Got a question on. I'm looking at buying a house in St. Charles County that has I'll use the word tenant, but they are not really a tenant in the property. They were friends of one of the siblings. The owner died in the property, and the sibling has since moved out, but these friends still live in the house. They don't answer the door if any of the heirs come to the door. So just trying to figure out what our options are as far as filing to get them out before I close on the house if we do go through with the purchase, or if I should just wait till afterwards and try to file an action.
Well, it's possible that the police would turf them out. It might be more likely in St. Charles County than in our other counties that the police might actually do that. But I think you have to assume that that's not going to happen. There's another, there's also the, can you trick them into paying some nominal rent for a couple of months, because then they become tenants and you can do the rent and possession or unlawful detainer. And as Chris has told us, it's business as usual for landlords in St. Charles. So we really don't have any problems there. Another option is, maybe they'll do cash for keys, and that might be the cheapest and most expeditious thing to do. And if all else fails, we would have to do an ejectment, which is a circuit court action. We can do it in St. Charles. I was in St. Charles in circuit court live a couple of weeks ago, and I actually felt pretty safe and good about being there. I felt the way they were managing everything and all their precautions were good. So I think you should assume, if you're buying this place and the people are still in, that if you can't get them to do some kind of short-term tenancy so that you can create a rent and possession, or get them to get out with cash for keys, that you'd be doing an ejectment, and that can cost a little more and it can take a little longer. Now, what a little longer is now, I don't know. Maybe it takes just as long as everything else, but it definitely could be a little more complicated.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking, but I just wanted to run it by you guys. So we'll probably try cash for keys. I mean, I usually try that first anyway, and maybe just send them a letter, and we're gonna, who knows? They may move out on their own. You never know.
Right.
But thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else got anything?
Yeah, Kathy?
Yeah.
Going into next year, knowing that we're getting into the winter now and cases are going to get worse because of the flu and everything else that just naturally happens. And it appears that Biden's going to go into this. I mean, hopefully this doesn't happen, but you think we could be in this position another 6 months from now?
Boy, I feel like that's really like almost a medical call. And I went to medical school at the Washington University School of Law. So
Yeah.
as my dad, the doctor, likes to remind me, but aren't we all hoping that there's going to be a vaccine soon? I have a neighbor who's in the vaccine study, I think the Moderna one. And I mean, we seem to have good information that those things are being successful. So, I mean, I hope it's not another 6 months, but certainly it possibly could be. We've never had this illness before. I think the doctors are working and researchers are working really hard. I personally believe in science. I believe that if we can wear masks and limit contacts and that kind of thing, we can slow the spread. But I don't think that's going to be good enough for totally return to normal. I think we're going to need a vaccine and that kind of thing. We're, you know, the scary number to me is the hospitalizations. I think it would be really frightening to get this disease, to be one of the unlucky ones who gets it bad and not be able to go to the hospital and get treatment because they're overwhelmed. That's
Do the
frightening.
judge, yeah, are the judges even looking at the fact that they got right at $10,000 in stimulus money, but they didn't pay us? I guess that just doesn't matter to them at all in the scheme of things.
Well, the city judge, Judge Burleson, was hoping that by doing the stay that people would be able to apply for the aid and get it. The problem has been how slow it's been from many of these agencies. And I really think at this point that it's the agencies who are holding it up. They either have unrealistic expectations for documentation or they're overwhelmed, or, you know, but I've heard stories about them losing files and not calling back to people and, you know, all kinds of things. Chris might want to weigh in on this because he's had a lot more direct contact with the mediators and with the negotiations on this than I have.
Sorry, someone came to my office. What was the question?
The stimulus money that they got from the government, the $660 per week, the people got right at $10,000 from the federal government. There's no reason for us to even have to do evictions if they were planning on paying the rent. I'm just amazed that they're doing what they're doing, knowing that they received all this money, but they
Well,
like to
I
not to
think
pay
that
the rent.
that unemployment, that enhanced unemployment is over. I think one good thing about Biden getting in is we might get another deal with more PPP money and, you know, maybe some more enhanced unemployment. But what I wanted Chris to address was how it's going with the mediations and with the COVID relief funds that the city has and that the governments have to assist landlords and tenants with rent.
Right. I mean, the nice thing is we are starting to see the money get distributed, at least with my clients. Some of the legal services attorneys and different people are turning to other agencies to get to the CARES Act money that's not Catholic Charities. In the city, particularly, they botched it, couldn't get any of the administrative work done. The Catholic Charities took a crack at it for a month or two, and they're, you know, not doing a great job of it. So other agencies are stepping in because the process is they've got to get the tenant to come in and meet with them, get a packet of information, which then the tenant has to bring at least one sheet to their landlord. I finally got a copy of that sheet for one of my clients, and it, you know, and filled it out for him. So it's pretty easy on the landlord's part, but then the tenant has to take it back, and it's a lot of following through on things that, you know, a lot of tenants have a hard time with. But the money is starting to go. You know, right now I'm hearing the estimated is about a month for new applications to get approved and applied. The one thing I was concerned about was I kept hearing that you had to dismiss your case if you took the money. Now I've seen the sheet that you have to fill out and sign. It does not say you have to dismiss your case. It says you agree to stay or dismiss your stay execution or dismiss your case. Well, I can stay execution for a day if there's no specification. So I'm not as worried about if you get a check in the mail from one of your tenants brings you this sheet to sign and you get a check in the mail that you're necessarily committing yourself to waiving the rest of the money as we initially thought. So I think, you know, if you do get a check in the mail, maybe, you know, to be in the spirit of the agreement you signed, you may want to, you know, put them on a payment plan and therefore you've kind of qualified with what, you know, you've agreed to stay the eviction. Okay, well, I gave them a chance to pay the rest off and they didn't do it. Then I think you're probably, and I think Kathy, and I took it to Kathy, and I think she agreed that you're probably covered to take the money even and not waive the rest as we initially were concerned about. There are some agencies that require it. The mediation company actually does for their 1,000 requires you to dismiss the case, but the money that's coming directly from the CARES Act, I don't see it has that any, you know, nothing I've seen would bind you to waiving the rest of your money if you accept that cash. Now, you know, I would still say, you know, give your tenants a little more time to catch up on the rest because that you are agreeing to do that, but not necessarily balancing them out at zero or dismissing any case you have pending.
Yeah, and I want everyone to be cautious if you get money directly, and you're cashing the check and there's paperwork, you know, run it by us or your lawyers or somebody so that we can make sure that you're not giving up your rights to any rent that's not covered by the settlement, or, so that, so that you're clear about what you're agreeing to do in exchange for that money. You might want to do it, and that's fine. We just want to make sure that nobody takes.
Yeah,
them-
I mean, there might be different sheets coming from different agencies. So you do want to read what you're signing, because the checks come without any explanation from it. Just here's $2,500 or whatever it ends up being. But it's the information sheet that you gotta watch out for, because it'll say, check a box here if you agree to do this. Just make sure it says you're not going to agree to waive anything, or unless you're fine with that.
Read what you're signing. What a concept from lawyers, right? Telling you that.
Yeah. Now I have heard initially I heard it was limited to 3 months rent, but I've heard of landlords getting more than that. That sometimes these agencies are just approving everything that's owed within reason. I mean, I'm not getting $10,000.
Yeah, I definitely have heard that the limits have risen as we've gone along, and I've also been told by reasonably reliable sources that for the city and the county, the millions of dollars they got in COVID, the part that's related to rent relief has to be spent by the end of the year. So we may be getting, more money, and we may be getting faster payouts and that kind of thing as they run up on that deadline. What we've heard is that if they don't spend it by the end of the year, they lose it. So there's an incentive for them to get that done. Okay, anybody else have anything we can help you with today? Okay, guys, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you
Hopefully
so
by then
much.
We'll have, an election. Have y'all heard the joke? I thought when your election lasted more than 4 hours, you're supposed to see a doctor.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, see you guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Oh.
Okay. Everybody else who wants to hang around, we're going to do a little haves and wants again. Did a little networking. Before we do get started, though, we got some longtime members. I know got some sad news yesterday that the board's STL REA board's treasurer, Ruth Hollander, longtime member and board member, and she's did a big service to our investment community. She passed away yesterday, and we're all extended our condolences to her family, because her son was always active. Danny Hollander was always active out at the table to check folks into, and so we just want to let folks know about that. Sounds like it's just going to be a quiet family